Sadistic Penguin Studios presents the At the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
And Tony Chalsa Burt.
I don't know this industry jargon, YP, MP, whatever, okay? All I know is that I cannot get a record contract. We cannot get a record contract unless I take these tapes.
It's almost time, so grab a drink, get your popcorn ready, and join the film discussion with two guys from Chicago talking movies.
I'm not afraid.
You will be. You will be.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 32 of the At the Show podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Yumper Garcia, and I'm with my other co-host, the Sugar Baggy, aka Chalsa, the Burt Man, Tony Burt. How you doing, man?
You will be. I love that's probably one of my favorite parts in the whole thing. That's great. Doing great. Glad to be here. Feel like a vampire in the night, ready to yumpire. I just saw that. Love it. It's gonna be a great time.
Yeah, I'm really excited for today, man. So we're going back to old format this whole month. And it's actually a really good month to do it because instead of doing deep dives on a horror film, we can actually go into several horror films. There's thousands of them. And I know me and you like go through these films that nobody's ever heard of, or even like stuff that's kind of known but not really elaborated on. So it kind of gives us a chance to show those along with the stuff we're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I hear. Am I back? I'm back.
Yeah, you're back, man. You're back.
All right. Yeah, I'm like playing like a DJ over here with my buttons, but it's awesome as you stated because like tonight, I am upset because after we put our picks out, this is the first time I'm like, oh, that one. We could have, but that's what's great about this. We're doing 10 tonight, a vampire movie, so really get to dig deep into some good ones.
Yeah. But before we get into that, Sam says, Yum plus umpire. Yumpire, I get it. Yes, Sam, it is playoff baseball season, so I have to be an umpire. I'm the better version of Angel Hernandez. But before we get into our picks, Tone, let's go into our regular segment of what we've been watching, my friend.
That's a me, and also, what were you just watching?
What were you watching this week, my man?
All right, we are getting started in the Halloween movie season, scary season. So I watched this movie since honestly I went over to a best friend's house like in 4th grade, and his sister showed us Slaughter High. And honestly, I love the tagline, Marty majored in cutting classmates. But even more, you know me, Yump, and you know that I love music, and the track in this movie just really always sticks to me in my head. But again, the movie is I think it's really awesome. But it it seems very real for many different reasons. But it was filmed by 3 guys, Mark Ezra, Peter Litton, and George Dugdale. And this movie came out in 1986. And to be fair, it is a slasher film. And I like the way it plays out. Watching the movie at the beginning, it takes place in a high school. And then something bad happens. Marty gets acid in his face. And then they come back for a reunion years later to this abandoned high school, which all looks like it's filmed by like me and you could have filmed this, but just the way that it plays out and some of the way it is shot. Since that 5th grade time of seeing it, I've always really enjoyed this movie. Have you ever seen Slaughter High, Yumper?
A long time ago, I've seen it. I haven't seen it recently, but when you brought up the soundtrack, it brought me back.
Definitely is cool also for the soundtrack is honestly is Harry Manfredini does the music in the film. And if you're not familiar with him, he is from Chicago, Illinois. He was a composer, jazz soloist, and also involved in the Friday the 13th series, the music for that movie. So there is a connection to somebody with bigger horror ties. And Slaughter High is, if you're looking for something really kind of over the top, Slaughter High is where it's at. The other thing I've been watching, and they play it every night on this show channel, I think it's called Comet. It starts at 8, and every night they're just running episodes, and I like it because I don't really have to pick an X-Files episode. I turn it on and it picks it for me, and I really, really, really love the X-Files.
Why would I make them so uncomfortable?
It probably has to do with your reputation.
I have a reputation.
They feel your methods, your theories are
Spooky.
Really like it. Last night, what was odd, not last night, Thursday night, was a really cool vampire episode that I had never seen. And honestly, it was like, wow, we're doing a vampire show. So it was cool that they were actually picked one out that was a vampire episode. But then there's another vampire episode in a later season with the gentleman from The Sandlot. What was his name? The one who's the catcher in the movie Sandlot?
Oh, I hear talking about
What a ham.
yeah, the Great Hambino.
Yes, and he's like a pizza delivery driver and gets bit by a vampire and then like goes after Mulder. Just a great show. What do you think of the X-Files, Joe?
I love the X-Files, but the fact that you mentioned that actor, like there's certain actors who can't, like, you cannot not see them as a kid. And he has that kid appearance. Even Haley Joel Osment, who's doing a great job of being JD Vance on set SNL.
That was great.
I still see him as a kid. Like he still has that
Oh, yeah.
baby face.
Oh yeah.
But
Really off topic, Entourage the movie. Haley Joel Osment does I like because he looks like, as you stated, that's why when he plays it serious, it almost gives it more of a ridiculous take too, because the JD Vance stuff is great.
yeah, Kate Burt says maybe he's a vampire. Caitlin puts in, I grew up on X-Files and Roswell. My mom used to wake me up as a kid because she thought saw UFOs in the night sky. Ooh.
Ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, X-Files was a big show for me. I watched it religiously when it came out on Fox. And then I saw the movies. It was weird when Mulder left and they brought in the T-1000 to replace him. But I mean, I still like the show. I love Robert Patrick. I think he's great.
Yeah,
but
I mean, real off again, my father, he came across this show when he was in the hospital. It was the only thing that was on TNT, and he had never watched it before. And then he left the hospital and said it was the greatest show ever. But Doggett, who was the character that you're describing there by Robert Patrick, was his favorite character, which is odd because, as you stated, when he came on, it was such a weird transition. But I love going back and watching these episodes because there's a lot. Like the one last night had, what's his name in it? Bradley Whitford from West Wing, Revenge of the Nerds in Paradise. But then also, you know, they just have Bradley Dorff has been in episodes. Burt Reynolds I mean, I like it because it's got a lot of memorable actors in it on top of the great lead actors too.
yeah, and the crazy thing is, like, as far as our personas, Mulder, who is more of a person that's like believes in like the paranormal, he believes that things can be out there, while Scully is more of a skeptic. In real life, the roles are reversed, while David Duchovny is more of the skeptic, and Gillian Anderson is the person that believes everything is out there, which I found was funny when I read it years later. Dude, we should do later, maybe not this month, but coming up, like something on the X-Files, because
Yeah.
that'd be a really
Great
cool one to go to. I love the X-Files. Baloney says X-Files and Sightings on Fox was my shit as a kid. Yes, Sightings was another good
Yes.
show.
Great show.
So I watched this week. One of the things I watched was I was a big fan of Stallone's Tulsa King last year, and they released a new season that has new episodes releasing every Sunday, which I actually kind of like the whole waiting on the week to watch it, because instead of binging, I can actually kind of like marinate on what's going on. Yeah. Yeah, so I won't feel guilty, and then I want to watch more. But I can let the marinate of the episode marinate what I think about it. This season's a little like I don't think it's as good as last season, but it's still enjoyable and it's entertaining. Uh, what do you call it? The guy from Suits is in there. He's got the blue. We just talked about him last week. Tone. He's got blonde hair. He's like looks like he plays all like the bad guys.
I think I know who you're talking about.
But it's more. I just love the fact that Stallone's playing a mobster in the modern era, and he doesn't shy away from his age. He talks about that he's 75 in the show, which I always thought was pretty crazy that Stallone's 75 and like he's still
Putting out work like this.
yeah, still and looks good too. Neil McDonough is his name.
Oh yeah, Neil McDonough is great.
Yeah,
That's
Neil
right.
McDonough's in there as the
Exactly
main
what I thought
villain.
you were talking about. He's actually got a very familiarable face. And if he's in this, is he a bad guy in this? Because I'm
course he is.
starting from the beginning. Well, then I'm definitely excited to get to him. Because
Yeah,
there was a show a long time ago, and I'm not afraid to admit it, but I watched Desperate Housewives when it was on Channel 7 a long time ago, and he was even on that, and he was and he was actually even really good on that show. So Neil McDonough, shout out.
yeah, he kind of gets typecast as the bad guy, but I
does.
loved him in Suits. He's actually he started off as a bad character and then became a good guy, which I thought was pretty good. But I watched Tulsa King, so if you haven't checked it out, it's on Paramount Plus, which is on Amazon. Worth to check out the first season at least. And then I was talking to our buddy King Nam, who's a friend of the show. We were discussing the series I've been doing for Halloween, and he watched Leprechaun and was asking me about other movies I watched because he's starting to get his daughter into horror movies. And he's like, "Have you seen Pumpkinhead?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I watch it every year." So that kind of got me in the mood to watch Pumpkinhead, which is a film that's not really talked about a lot when it comes in terms of horror. It's kind of like I guess, an uncommon horror film. I mean, back in the 90s, it got more of a push because it got more sequels and it got a horrible game on the PC. But this was like I remember seeing this in the early 90s, the first film with Lance Henriksen, and I was just, like, hooked onto it because of the whole old witch in the mountains, the way Pumpkinhead looked, the way they shot him as far as, like, you didn't see the full figure, only, like, glimpses until the end. It was totally creepy, and it's one of those films that actually still holds up to this day, like, the effects for it, they're practical, most of them, and they look awesome. You've seen Pumpkinhead, right, Tone?
Oh, I mean, honestly, on the way, I got paired on the bus today on this field trip. I went to Millennium Park today on a field trip, and the guy teacher who was on the way back, we just talked movies the whole way there and back. And I asked him, has he ever seen Pumpkinhead? And he said no. And my description was like, honestly, it's no joke. It's a really good movie. Lance Henriksen is awesome. I mean, I saw this movie, man, when I was 9. My dad loved this movie. He actually really liked part 2 a lot too, for some reason. But he really liked this movie. And honestly, I only have the very manillas complaint about the movie, and it's something cheesy. It's not even really a complaint. It's unfortunately how Lance Henriksen's son passes. I just can't believe that that's what takes him down. Like, he barely gets like nipped by the bike. But that all being said, it's a believable, great movie. I like the idea of going out there into almost like the pet cemetery into the hills to meet that old lady who gives them just a great movie all around. Yeah. When you picked it, it also sparked in my mind, obviously, to have this conversation today on the bus, but special. And what I brought up to him, because he loves good special effects, like Alien, was the special effects in this movie were great for practical special effects.
Yeah, and the witch you're talking about, which is Haggis, who is here, probably one of the best, feature film witches in terms of design that I've ever seen. I don't even know like it's played by an older actor, I forget her name, Florence something.
It was a great job.
Yeah, she did an awesome job, but I don't think Florence Schaffler. I don't know if she did any other roles after this. Maybe she was a real witch. I don't know. She was pretty creepy looking in the film. But she always creeped me out as a kid, and like even now, the way she talks, it still creeps me out. But great film. If you guys haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. I think it's on Amazon Prime for free. So it's one of the movies that is definitely worth looking at if you haven't seen it.
Definitely worth it. Definitely look into, and somewhere around here in a box, I got a Pumpkinhead figure. I don't know
Oh
where.
man.
I love Pumpkinhead, man. Great pick.
Yes. Yeah. Hopefully they don't remake it to ruin it.
No, 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 no. I was more of a Y-Files.
Sam Reeves
That
coming
was
in.
good. That was a good show.
So that's what we watched this week. Let us know what you watched over on Twitter or X. You know what, Elon, Musk, you are a billionaire. You need to fix your damn website when it comes to the desktop version. It shouldn't
Oh,
revert me back to a different profile when I click on the other profile. It's an
I
easy,
know.
easy
It's
solution,
bad.
and you have devs that can take care of it. Uh, you're worth billions of dollars. Well, your value went down. So fix your damn website on the desktop version. I know it's a mobile app, but you can still fix it on the desktop version. But be sure to check us out over at Sadistic Penguin Studios on Facebook, or let us know in the YouTube comments what you watched this week. I watched The Vampire Diaries. You know what, Caitlin, since you're talking about The Vampire Diaries, I remember the commercials for that, and it was on like the CW. The vampire is that the? That's like his back is turned. These two girls go on. They're like, "Oh, that's a hot back." And I'm like, that's like the worst line I've ever heard in a commercial in my life. So that turned me off from it. I think my wife watches The Vampire Diaries.
For whack. Way to go, King.
Yeah, that guy could lead.
He could. That was a good if you ever saw Waco, it was on, I think, Netflix. It was a
Mhm.
good it was like a 4 or 5 episode series with
Yeah, actually there's a lot of history going around that, the Oklahoma City bombing was actually a result of the Waco incident. Timothy McVeigh was a follower, but I don't want to get too much into that. It's kind of depressing. As Tony froze, and when he comes back, we will go into the vampire films that we wanted to watch, that we picked for the week. But I want to let you guys know that we do have new merch that is out just for this month of October, and that is actually the Penguin Voorhees that I'm going to play for you right now. So be sure to pick up your sweatshirt or t-shirt if you like the design over at the Statistic Penguin Big Cartel. The link is actually in the bio of the video. I'll drop the link a little bit on the stream. It's only out for this month. It's just something we're trying to see if you guys like it. I like the design. I know we had other designs that we didn't get voted on, but that we like that we might release later and maybe next Halloween or whatnot. But it's a real cool design. We got Mailman Jack his Michael Myers design that he really liked, a custom for him, which is awesome. But be sure to check it out there. My man, Tone, when was the first time you saw a vampire film?
I mean, of course. I mean, we're talking late 80s. We're talking Lost Boys. It has to be one of the first ones I've seen. Or I remember seeing an Interview with the Vampire at the movie theater. I mean, what year is that? 94. Somewhere right around there. I'm guessing. How about you?
Probably Lost Boys would probably be the first vampire film I saw from like the modern era. My mom is a huge Bela Lugosi fan. So the original Dracula is something that we watched all the time, even though it's not really scary. But the crazy thing about it, just noticing about that film, is that there's no score. It's completely just like acting, which, like, now that you realize it, it's kind of weird if you actually watch the movie now in modern time, because you're expecting a score to go along with the acting, and it's just the actors. It's pretty cool. But that was the first film that I watched fully, was that one, and then Lost Boys probably came second. And Lost Boys, I mean, me and my brother love Lost Boys. So maybe we'll talk about that one today.
Maybe, possibly. We'll have to see.
But let's get into our films, my man. Let's go into our first one.
All right.
Wow.
Wow.
My garage was one of the first in town to start doing them. I had a shop right near your place. Daytime driving, man. Nothing beats it. No traffic, no cops. Trouble is, if you ain't careful, you can get yourself one hell of a sunburn.
2009's Daybreakers, directed by Michael Spierig and Peter Spierig, the Spierig brothers, who also directed Winchester, Jigsaw, The Pedestrian, and The Undead. It stars Ethan Hawke, William Dafoe, Sam Neill and Harriet Mintil Day. It had a budget of $20 million and a box office of $51 million, but it made $17 million in the home market sales as well to go along with it. This is one of my picks, and this film I really, really liked because it was something different. It had, unlike the Kate Beckinsale's series of the Lycans and the vampires fighting, uh, Underworld. This film had more of a realism to it, as vampires have taken over the world. Humans are basically used as food and energy, and there's a shortage of blood going around where people are trying to use synthetic blood, like Ethan Hawke's character is trying to use synthetic blood that's more sympathetic towards humans, and his brother doesn't give a shit and is is just killing people, which is what the vampires are trying to wave off from because there's not many humans left. Uh, and then it also has William Dafoe in it. Great, great, makeup and not a lot of CGI. I love Sam Neill in this film. It's shot in a dark, like a very dark, atmosphere, which is great because, of course, vampires are afraid of sunlight. It has a good twist in it in terms of becoming normal again. I don't want to get too much into it, but it's one of those films that doesn't really get mentioned a lot when we talk about vampire films, and this one was one of my favorites, and I always liked it ever since I saw it. What about you, Tom?
Really good. Awesome. The music is really good too. Christopher Gordon, who does the composing for this. I don't know if you've ever seen Master and Commander with the Mr. Russell Crowe. He does the music for that one, which is a lot different than this. But he has just a great scope, and honestly, throughout the movie, it adds flair to it. On top of that, I like the lighting in the film. I like the cinematography. Even going back here, if you're watching online, to the actual poster, the lighting is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different shades. It looks really cool, and the way they shoot the movie is just great. You're talking to a big Sam Neill stan, so him mixing it up with Dafoe and Ethan Hawke, I love Ethan Hawke. Maybe down the road here we'll talk about Sinister, but he's always awesome in a lot of different things. But just a good movie all around.
It's become one of my favorites in terms of the modern vampire. It's something different. Like you said, you hit it right on the nail, with the hammer. The whole cinematography, Sam Neill is awesome, especially what happens to him in the end, which is like crazy how they, play that part. It's very gory as well. Sam says he respects all Sams. Well, I'm glad you do, Sam. But yeah, it's definitely one of those films that you need to check out if you haven't seen it. I remember when it got released, and I didn't go see it in theater, but I saw it on DVD, and I actually bought the DVD. It was at a bin for like $5. But it got me like really into the film, and now I watch it every year for Halloween.
Well, I'm going to do one of those things like we do at the end of our film breakdowns, where I'm going to give you one of those, like when I try to connect, I'm going to connect a movie here. Is this could this be like a sequel to like Jurassic Park? Like somehow a dinosaur had some kind of vampire venom in him, and this was like what led to the down. You know what? Never mind. We're going to keep going.
I mean, if it wasn't set in 2009, yeah.
There you go. I just a thing into my whole my fan theory.
Yeah, he ate Dr. Malcolm.
Yes.
But if you haven't seen Dave Breakers, be sure to check it out. It's a great film. Tone, let's get into your pick, my man.
All right.
One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires.
1987's The Lost Boys, directed by late great Joel Schumacher, who directed The Phantom of the Opera, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, Phone Booth, 8mm, The Client, Flatliners, and Falling Down. The film stars Jason Patric, Kiefer Sutherland, Diane Wiest, Corey Feldman, Corey Haim, and Edward Herrmann. The movie had a budget of $8.5 million and a box office of $32 million. Well, it didn't take us long to talk about this one, Tone. Tell us why you picked The Lost Boys, my man.
Oh my God. I mean, just you playing that clip right there, I could start crying. I mean, I love the movie that much. Like, I love the movie more than I love other movies you might think I like more than this movie. There's so many things about it. I think what it is the vibe. the overall vibe in the movie. Of course, the music is bar none amazing from the top to the bottom. The soundtrack is killer. Echo and the Bunnymen are all over the soundtrack, including a great cover of People Are Strange. Honestly, this is one of the only times in my life I don't really have to do any notes, because this is like literally I'm speaking as passionately as I can. Like even the front cover, staring at it. Growing up, wanting to be, honestly, I could have been anybody. I could have been, Jason Patrick. I could have been Alex Winter. I could have been Jamie Gertz. I mean, the whole movie, it would have been amazing because they all is so cool. And to find out even more the behind the scenes in all of this, to find out that, Jason Patrick really had a pull behind the scenes to get this made. He had a pull to get Jamie Gertz in the movie. Him and Kiefer Sutherland were such good friends that they fought over Julia Roberts later. The movie is just loaded with so much great cinematography. As we've talked about before, recently with 8mm, Joel Schumacher with his career with the Batman Forever and Batman Robin. And honestly, this plays a great back-to-back with another scary movie that I know you are familiar with, Flatliners, right around the same time. But again, the movie has so much great things about it, including, for me, what I would deem to be like the first really awesome vampire scene that I saw. Like that whole scene, it was like he took the bite out of the guy's head and this and that. But I mean, yeah, I can go on forever, man. This is a great movie.
No, I love it when you go. It's hilarious when you ramble. But that scene right there was actually supposed to be longer. They actually cut it down because they were afraid of the rating they got for it. Kiefer Sutherland talked about it, how like the part where he bites the guy's head, it was supposed to be extended longer, where they actually eat the guy. That would have been cool if they left it in like a director's cut, which unfortunately they didn't do. But this film is straight up nostalgia. I mean, it still holds up to this day in terms of the way it looks. The effects for the film are mostly practical effects, and they're beautifully done. The atmosphere is really, really nicely shot. The soundtrack has basically made a life of its own. Driving in the Stay Alone in the Midnight, I think is one of the songs that play when they're driving the motorcycle.
Hello, midnight.
Yeah,
lost emotion. Yeah, that's great.
And then Tim Capello's I Still Believe. I mean, that guy has made basically money off that one like 10-second clip or 15-second clip of him dancing around with his saxophone, to the point that Brian dressed up as him for Halloween last year, which I thought was hilarious. It's just
Alex Winter, man. I mean, you always think Bill and Ted, but I always think Lost Boys for some reason, because
Marco.
The whole scene when they're like, "Good night, bloodsucker." No, don't even. And then like the whole it's like, oh, just a great scene. The blood's coming down on all of them in that like the Vampire Cave Jim Morrison poster on the wall in the cave. I mean, music is just all over in this movie, to the point of even in the very beginning when they're driving in, she's like, they're talking about the music they like, and the mom's talking about the music she likes.
Groovin'.
And, she sings this song. It's like grooving on the sun. And honestly, never heard that song until she sang it. And then I heard it on the radio and I was like, that's the song the mom from Lost Boys is singing. But cool stuff like that.
Yeah, and Mailman Jack brings up a point. Noodles, when they're in the cave and he does the psych out with
You don't like noodles, Michael?
Yeah, they're just noodles, Michael. I like how he's like, Marco, food, and Marco runs away to get food. It's an iconic film. I mean, it was something that the two Coreys basically tried to remake into a sequel. And eventually they did the second one, The Tribe, which wasn't horrible. The Thirst wasn't as bad as The Tribe, but it still wasn't a great film. And of course, Corey Haim unfortunately passed away so young. But did you know that I know that must spoil part of the movie, but I mean, this movie is 20 years old. 30 years old almost. the ending when David gets put through the horns and he doesn't disintegrate, the whole reason that was left that way was because there was supposed to be a sequel shortly after where he actually fights a girl and they become with him as the Lost Girls and he would be the leader of them. That
Yes.
never came to fruition, which I wish they would have done.
Oh yeah.
Also, I never seen the Lost Boys because, well, they're lost. Sam. Another great thing is this title. When we think of the Lost Boys, we think Peter Pan.
Yep.
And that completely, in this generation, at least, is completely gone. Because when you think of Lost Boys, you think of this film, and it kind of goes along with them. They were all people, from different backgrounds that basically got put together because they're all vampires. This is an excellent, excellent film, and Joel Schumacher really knocked it out of the park for this one. Did you know that Ben Stiller actually auditioned for a role in this film?
Oh my gosh, that would have been great.
Who do you think he could have been? He could have been Paul.
I was thinking he could have been he's just a little boy.
Yeah. Oh, Lonnie.
Yeah, Lonnie. There you go.
Eddie Munster.
Yeah.
But Jim Carrey also auditioned for the role of David because he was in a vampire film called Once Bitten. The grandfather in this film, Bernard, I forget his last name, but he is hilarious. Edward Herman, who is Max, but will later go on to play the grandfather in Gilmore Girls. Now, I've never seen Gilmore Girls until I started dating my wife. She's a huge Gilmore Girls fan. She watches the series over and over. So if you ever see my Netflix, it has Gilmore Girls on there. Like, it's just ridiculous. But when I saw him on the show, I'm like, oh crap, that's Max. And she's like, who? I'm like, Max from Lost Boys. She's like, I never seen. And so I had to show her Lost Boys, and she's like, oh, but he will always be known as Max to me instead of the Grandpa Gilmore. But great pick. There's so much stuff we could talk about. So maybe in the future we can do a deep dive just on this film alone.
Yeah, Bernard Hughes was his name. Did a great job as the grandpa. I've always wanted the don't touch his thing in the refrigerator.
Old fart.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, awesome film. And I love the fact he said that Jason Patrick and Kiefer Sutherland became such good friends. They fought over Julia Roberts, who Jason Patrick stole.
If you get an opportunity, recently they did an interview together, and it's cool to hear them talk together. It's always for me, for anything like to imagine 20 years or 30 years, you have to do something to sit down and actually still have a connection to it. I just think it's cool.
Yeah, they buried the hatchet and they're buddies again.
Yeah.
Talking about Paul, when I was doing research for this, one last thing about the film, I guess he wasn't acting very well, and Joel Schumacher got pissed and slapped him.
Oh.
It was like, you need to do better. And then he's like, I guess he got so frustrated with him, he couldn't handle it. Now, I don't, condone slapping him, but I'm just like, damn, Joel Schumacher got so upset he slapped Paul.
Is that when he's like, no, you killed Marco?
Yeah. He said, I was so frustrated. I just slapped him and pushed the door in front of him. I have never done that in my life and never again. I'm ashamed of it. It's outrageous. He should have reported me. I should have been brought up on charges, but I apologize many, many times. At least he's remorseful for it. But I'm just like, damn, how bad was he? I mean, he had maybe 5 lines in the whole movie. Was he really that bad?
What could he have done?
Oh man, maybe that's why he got killed by stereo.
Could be.
But great pick, Tone. Let's move on to our next one.
Greta is in your last scene. That is when you can have her.
After my death scene?
Yes.
Don't expect realism there, Murnau.
What do you mean?
Don't cheat me, mortal.
You will stay away from her. You will stay away from my crew. I will finish my picture.
This is hardly your picture any longer.
2000's Shadow of the Vampires, directed by Elias Merhige, who also did Suspect Zero and Begotten, starring John Malkovich, Carrie Ells, Catherine McCormick, Udo Kier, and Eddie Izzard. The movie had a budget of $8 million and made 11 at the box office. This was actually, talked about this film in our William Dafoe episode, but it happens to be one of my favorite vampire films just because of William Dafoe. And it's also off that myth that Max Schreck, who Dafoe plays, was actually a vampire. That was a myth going around for years because he did so well in Nosferatu as the main vampire, Count Orlok, that he was a real vampire, so they made this fantasy film about it. And, Defoe got nominated for an Oscar for his film for his role. Him and Malkovich's chemistry is so good. It's also very creepy. I love the fact it's a timepiece where they actually show, a period piece. They show them filming the actual scenes from the movie. If you've seen the original, and you can watch it for free on YouTube, of the black and white film, and you see scenes from it that they reenacted, but you see it in the old style movie camera where it's very, very slow. There's no sound. It's always, this one's always like held a special place in my heart because I'm a lover of film and it kind of shows like the old school style of shooting. But it also has like a good, story behind it of him hiring a real vampire to shoot in his movie and he just starts killing people. It's an excellent, excellent film, Tone.
Really cool is that I'll always remember like seeing the trailer. Like this isn't like you said, it's not a super well-known movie. So for me to say that, man, I remember seeing this trailer up on the screen and remembering when they were doing promotions for it. And Defoe, I mean, obviously just by the picture and your description of it, and even just hearing him do that piece that you just played, really put a lot of work into this. And Malkovich too. Just a great acted movie.
Yeah, definitely really, really well acted. Carrie Ells, who is more known for a comedic actor, it plays a little bit more serious role in this film. Udo Kier, who's known as usually the bad guy or a Satanist, is actually a good guy in this film. It has a good, a good supporting cast, and Malkovich is just awesome. Like, he's very, very flamboyant in his emotions, and Defoe being kind of the reserved vampire in this film, like he kind of like shrugs him off. But when they get into it, it's such a great it's like acting 101. Like you want to have this chemistry between your two actors that are in your starring roles, and it's nicely done.
Really cool too is the composer Dan Jones. Hasn't done a lot of super popular work, but has worked with artists like Massive Attack, who do like kind of like a trip hop out sound. But the music he puts together for this movie too makes you feel very like you're, as you stated, the time where they're trying to portray, which is important for the music for any movie.
Yeah, and this film was actually produced by Nicolas Cage. It was the first film he ever produced. And one more thing I really liked about this when going back and looking at our previous notes was that Murnau has a line. Murnau is the character that John Malkovich plays, the director. He has a line that says, "If it isn't in the frame, it doesn't exist." Is a paraphrase of a piece of advice that the real Murnau gave a young director by the name of Alfred Hitchcock when he was later visiting the UFA studios in Berlin before becoming famous. Hitchcock never forgot the advice and was still quoting it when making his final movie in the mid 1970s. The use of the quotation in the context of Shadow the Vampire is a dissertation of what the real Murnau meant. And that's pretty crazy that that director inspired probably one of the greatest horror directors, if not the greatest horror director of all time.
Yeah.
Alfred Hitchcock.
It's also funny you should mention Nicolas Cage because I really kicked myself I didn't pick Vampire's Kiss.
I thought you were.
But that was the one where I was like, I should have picked that because it was juxtaposition. But go back and check out VHS episode 13. I did like the little 3-minute clip it on it, but still, Defoe great in this movie. Really good, and it gets me excited for that new Nosferatu that's coming out.
Yeah, he's becoming the vampire guy now. Like we have him in Daybreakers, we got him in Shadow of the Empire. We actually have him in another film that he doesn't play a big role in, but he's in that we're going to talk about next.
Okay, so what went wrong?
Temperature's still way up.
Bill?
Night before last, he didn't sleep a wink. He hasn't slept now for 50-some hours.
56.
All day yesterday, he got uglier and uglier. Last night, he turned on Betty. He loved Betty.
You thought he loved Betty.
He tore her apart and then he ate her.
1983's The Hunger, directed by Tony Scott, who did other films such as Top Gun, Man on Fire, Spy Game, Enemy of the State, True Romance, The Last Boy Scout, Days of Thunder, Beverly Hills Cop Part 2. It stars David Bowie, Catherine Deneuve, Susan Sarandon, and Dan Hedaya. The movie had a box office of 5.9 million. I couldn't find a budget for it, no matter how many other sites I went to. But Tone, when I saw this, I'm like, man, I haven't seen this film in a long time. Tell me why you picked this one.
I like the vibe. I mean, I'm always talk about the vibes. I think this movie is spooky in a really, really weird and different type of way. Um, you talk about a musical right down the middle is the beginning of the movie with Bauhaus doing Bela Lugosi's Dead. Now you're gonna catch me every single day saying Bowie is fucking cool, but in this movie, Bowie is really, really, really cool. And so is Susan Sarandon, and so is Catherine Devine. Just really gives me what I would think to be one of the most gothic portrayals of vampirism in a movie. The way it's filmed, and it's crazy because it's Tony Scott, and he does such great work and sometimes bright work with Top Gun and stuff, stuff like that you're not expecting to see this dark. It's a really dark and dingy, but the cinematography is beautiful in a way, and the performances are great.
Yeah, and it kind of portrays vampirism or the curse of having vampirism as an addiction. Like that's like kind of like the
Yeah.
emphasis of the film. And you know, great actors in Susan Sarandon and Catherine Devine. And David Bowie was very, very scared or kind of intimidated by Catherine Devine because she was a classically trained actress. And David Bowie, Ziggy Stardust, he's a man known for music, in the 70s, 80s, 90s until his death. Uh, but he was him being intimidated by somebody cracked me up when I was reading this because Catherine Devine was, intimidating, and he thought he was going to act well, and Susan Sarandon helped him overcome that fear, because he's like, oh, she's really chill, which I can see Susan Sarandon being really chill. But he is awesome in the film. His look, he always had that weird look, and in
Mhm.
this film, it kind of plays into being a vampire. I love when the de-aging process when they have it at the end
Mhm.
with him. It's really like it was based off like the picture of Dorian Gray, if you ever read that book,
Yeah,
but
oh yeah.
it's awesomely done. It still holds up to this day. Tony Scott, who, like you said, is known mostly for action films, knocked this one out of the ballpark. It's one of those films that should get talked about a lot more. To be honest with you, I wish I had this one on my 31 Days of Horror for this month. But I definitely will have this on in a future one if I decide not to go crazy and do it again. But I definitely like this movie.
Well, I will be the first one to watch that. Well, I'm the first one to watch a lot of these episodes that you do because they're amazing. Just like The Last Shadow of the Vampire last year was what brought that back into my circle. But again, when you sent me your list, I'm trying to think of different type of vampire movies. And this one gave me like a different we're in a gallery of vampire movies. It gave me in that Bauhaus song in the beginning with the credits rolling. And honestly, I'm a huge fan of the ending of this movie too. I think the ending is really cool in a way. And I think all around it just ties it really together nicely.
Definitely, yeah. And Tone, do you know that they wanted to make a remake of this film?
Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. Oh
So
no. Oh no, no.
in September 2009, Warner Brothers announced they would make a remake.
Oh no.
With a screenplay was written by the source novelist Whitney Strieber. But to
Ooh.
the date, and this is October of 2023, the remake has not been made. So maybe it's dead in development hell, and we hope so because this one's actually a film that I wouldn't want to see remade. Just like I wouldn't want to see Lost Boys remade,
Oh
which
no.
I
No.
know it'll happen. But I
They're
mentioned, go ahead.
go on.
No, I mentioned William Dafoe is actually in this film. He is one of the people in the phone booth uh, when they're walking through the city. He's one of the people in the phone booth with John Pankow is
Oh.
actually with him, and it's crazy that like William Dafoe just happens to be in vampire movies. I guess he loves them.
He could have been in them all. He makes it perfect. He could make a perfect vampire hunter, um, anything really. Vampire
Yeah.
victim.
This is prior to Panko being in Monkey Shines, which is
Good movie too.
a great horror film.
It
But if you
is.
haven't seen, if you want to see one of the films on this list, like I would highly recommend The Hunger. It's actually
Jason, sorry to get off topic. Jason Beghe's beard in Monkey Shines, like it's not real looking at all, but a great movie. I love it.
yeah, it's hilarious. But if you, like I was saying, if you really want to see a film that is really, really done well and doesn't get enough love, The Hunger is definitely worth it. It's gory. It's got like, but it's shot so beautifully. It's a film that had to go through a lot of cuts because they didn't want to get an X rating for it. But
Yes.
definitely check this one out if you can find it. It's will be definitely worth your time. Let's move on to our next one, my friend.
No, not this time. This time you get somebody else to pick up your garbage.
Not everything is garbage.
Oh, no, not the little book again.
This is not garbage.
You know, they all look the same to me.
That's part of the problem. Open your eyes. Look, this is different. This one will be mine.
1992's Kronos, directed by Guillermo del Toro, who did Hellboy 1 and 2, Pan's Labyrinth, The Shape of Water, Pinocchio, Nightmare Alley, and Mimic 1 and 2. The film stars Federico Lupi, Ron Perlman, Claudio Brook, Margarita Isabel, Tamara Zaneth, and Daniel Jimenez Cancho. The movie had a budget of $2 million and only made $597,000. This is one of the films that really got me into the Guillermo del Toro filmography. He's one of my favorite directors because of the way he sets atmosphere, though his characters in terms of monsters. And I love the fact that Ron Perlman always seems to be in all his films. And the reason for that is because in this film, Perlman was in, of course, Beauty and the Beast in the 90s, and that film did not, that series ended, and he was kind of typecast. He was kind of out of Hollywood. Del Toro loved him and the monster looked and wanted to bring him in for this film, but couldn't really afford him because he put up a lot of his own money for this film in particular. I think he put up $1 million of his own with loans and like mortgages on his house. So even though the money didn't make a lot of the film didn't make a lot of money, it was shot him up to notoriety for the way he directed it, and it's kind of got a cult following since then. And Perlman signed on for such a low paycheck for this film to help the budget that Del Toro never forgot that and used Perlman going forward in all his films. So that's why he's in Nightmare Alley. That's why he's in Hellboy. That's why he's in the Mimic. I think he's also in Mimic as a small part. That's why he's like kind of like Del Toro's best friend, so he's gonna keep using him in the films. This film is mostly shot in Spanish, which is all right though. If you don't speak Spanish, you can actually check it out with the subtitles. It's beautifully done in terms of the way it looks. It's basically about a guy who finds a figure in a stone that is discovered by his granddaughter, and this figure actually is like a bug. It's contraption that looks like a gold bug, and actually sticks and sticks into him like a trap, and it injects a serum that basically turns him into a vampire. One of the things that I always loved about this film is the way the vampire looks when he starts to turn, is he looks like a marble white look of the vampire. Like his skin starts to peel from regular and it starts to become marble white, which I always thought was kind of cool. It's got a great story, lots of blood in it. It's also, it cracks me up because Ron Perlman is in a Spanish-speaking movie where he talks mostly English and broken Spanish. And when I did research for this, Tone, he was supposed to speak fluent Spanish, which he tried. But Guillermo del Toro said that when he was reading like certain parts, it sounded so horrible. He's like, you know what? We're gonna have the character be from America and hate Mexico. And he's like, I can do it. So, it's one of those films that is totally overlooked, when it comes to vampire films, but it's a film that I definitely love and you should definitely check out. Have you seen Kronos, Tone?
Oh yeah, I mean, honestly, I had not seen it until again one of your great videos last year, which brought it to the forefront. Ron Perlman, I mean, I can't believe I hadn't seen it before, and I can't believe I didn't actually see it on IMDb ever. A little bit off a topic really quick though is that there is a movie that came out in what was it? it's the 19. I think it starts with a K here. Hold on, I'm gonna come up. Oh, yes, that's what it is. 1957, Kronos with a K. My dad, it was a sci-fi movie that my dad just really, really enjoyed, like when he was a kid. So when you brought this to the forefront on that series, I was like, oh, the sci-fi movie. And then I was like, Guillermo del Toro's got a movie called Kronos. My mind just like exploded that there were two Kronos, K and C, but great movie. Really glad because, as you know, I see so many movies to see one as fresh as this one and not know about it. It kind of reminds me of how you described Tony Scott and The Hunger, an early movie that kind of slips under the radar that sometimes you don't even know that they did, but it should be more to the front.
Yeah, definitely check this one out. It's like I said, it's in Spanish, but they do have English dubbed. I just love, foreign films are good films to check out in terms of whatever. They're not just martial arts films that I watch, but I watch a lot of foreign films because I like to see how other cultures present issues or daily issues, just like we do in movies. And there's a lot of great, great foreign horror films, not just in Spanish, but no, South America, but also in Asia. Ring. I don't want to read a movie. Well, then Sam, you can get the subtitle, the dubbed version, which is funny. But yeah, this just be sure to check this one out if you can. It's one of his best, if not one of the best film I think of his filmography. I mean, I'll battle anybody on that one because I really, really like this film. But it's really, really cool. The practical effects hold up really well in this film, and it's kind of got like a good abuelo, mija, story with a daughter and then his granddaughter, and then his her being him being her grandfather. It's a good film. I did find it funny that he went to go take this film to Universal Tone, and Universal wanted to buy the film from him and make a remake in '93.
Oh,
and Del Toro met with them and was like, who wants to see Jack Lemmon lick blood off the floor? Which is like cracks me up because that's a scene in the movie where he's like in a bathroom, a guy's bleeding, and he sees the blood and he licks it. So I just thought, like, I was thinking like that would totally be a Universal thing to put Jack Lemmon in this role and have him be a vampire.
Now we'd be thinking of him and Walter Matthau licking blood off of the floor.
Oh
like
man,
grumpy old men,
vampire old men.
vampire old men.
But yeah, definitely check this one out if you haven't. It's definitely worth your time. Tone, let's get into your next pick, my man.
Welcome to Fright Night. For real.
1985's Fright Night, directed by Tom Holland, who also did Child's Play and Tony's favorite film, Thinner. It stars Chris Sarandon, William Ragsdale, Amanda Bierce, Roddy McDowall, and Stephen Jeffries. It had a budget of $9 million and made a box office of $24 million. Tone, why'd you pick Fright Night?
Well, I picked it because it's where Susan gets her last name. No, I'm just kidding. She was married to Chris, and that's how Susan was deemed Sarandon. Why I picked this movie was because it came to me again later. I did not see this movie until I was probably after I was 21. For some reason, I don't know why. It just never crossed. No one in my family, my friends never showed me. But honestly, awesome movie. Really awesome movie. Really cool plot. It gives off a lot of different vibes. Somewhere like Vampire, The Burbs mixture. Like you got this neighbor that comes into town. I like the idea of always here's this guy who comes into town and you're immediately suspected of him being somebody shady, but nobody believes you. But it just keeps getting shadier and shadier. And Chris Sarandon, I mean, that clip you played, which was a great interlude to the trailer for the 31 days of horror videos that you're doing. Welcome to Fright Night. I've been saying that so many times that I'm glad that was the quote that you picked. But just a good movie. I mean, honestly, a cool vampire story.
It's one of those films that held up you know, through the 30 years it's been out. They made a remake with Colin Farrell that was okay. It wasn't
Yeah, not
it
terrible.
wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I prefer the original. Uh, for one, I love the '80s soundtrack in this film. It's totally set in its time. Roddy McDowall is somebody I think that you really can't replace as Peter Vincent, who's basically a playoff Peter Cushing and Vincent Price, two big horror mainstays. But it's so much, you know, it's one of those teen horror films, but it's so good. Like it has werewolves in it. You can Who can forget Evil Ed, Stephen Jeffries laugh, Brewster. Like to the point where now he says if he goes to a convention, he hates doing the laugh, but he'll do it. And he really kind of dipped out of film. Like he did 976 Evil
Yeah.
for Robert Englund, and then he kind of went into a different type of film. But
He sure did, didn't he?
yeah, you know, this film had it all, and, like, I love the practical effects. I watched a actual, you know, background, behind the scenes of Fright Night 1 and 2. It's actually on Amazon Prime. They actually have Fright Night behind it. Yeah, You're So Cool, Brewster, which Tony has a poster of. That's actually a very, very cool documentary because it interviews all the cast. It has also, like, the stuff they did with practical effects with the hands, the guy when his, helper gets melted, the way they did that. It gives you, like, a whole bunch of details. If you're a film nerd and you like horror, that's, like, a great, great little two-part documentary to go over because it talks about, the first 2 movies. And, Chris Sarandon's character is awesome. The way they made him look, like, it was just I l and the more I think about it, like, every time I watch this film, I kinda feel like Chris Sarandon's character is really not that bad because in the film, he tries to give him a way out. He tells him, "I'm gonna give you a choice nobody ever gave me to just leave me alone." He tells him that, and Brewster, of course, being a dick, is like, "Nah," until he tries to kill him, but he tries to tell him, like, "If you just leave me alone, I'll let you live." Like, so I guess he tried to give him a way out, but, I mean, he's supposed to be the bad guy. I liked him. I used to the whole dance scene in the club always makes me laugh too.
I got another fan theory. Are you ready? So he is the captain on the well, not the captain. He's like the first guy helping on the ship on Overboard. But Edward Herman is also on that ship because he's Goldie Hawn's ex-husband. Do you think if Roddy McDowall stakes Edward Herman right there, Lost Boys doesn't happen? Is this a fan theory? Did I get something? No, I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
man, it could be. I mean, I could totally see if you wanna go even deeper,
Yeah,
you
there
know,
we go.
you know, Roddy McDowall, he could have, been chasing after Edward Herman. That's why he moved to California.
Oh, I love it. Spinoff.
But yeah,
Overboard Vampire. Vampire
Roddy Mc
Overboard.
yeah, Roddy McDowall is awesome in this film.
Yes,
Like,
great.
I love the whole beginning of, they have him in the studio. It reminds me of Svengoolie,
Oh yeah.
of him doing that, and it's something that used to be on back in the day where my mom always talks about, like, she used to watch this, person that would introduce horror films in the same kinda way, and he does it in, the movie, and it's hilarious. I mean, it's been parody, like in Gremlins 2, when they have, the vampire guy who does movies, who wants to be an actor,
Yeah.
a news reporter, they have him do it. So it was something that was part of the time, but definitely, great pick, Tone. It's probably one of my all-time favorites in terms of vampire films. I know I'll be saying that a lot, but I love a lot of movies, so,
Oh yeah.
I'm
It's
sorry.
tough. It's tough. It's tough not to love these movies.
Yeah, but definitely, check this one out. It's definitely worth your time if you haven't. Also check out the remake and compare the 2 to let me know what you
Got
guys think of
McLovin in it.
them.
He did a good
Yeah,
job.
he's Evil Ed.
Yeah, did a
He is
good
Evil Ed.
job.
And also, you gotta believe to make all the stuff work against the vampires. Let's move on to our next one, my man.
Dad? Can I talk to you?
Yeah, sure, pal. What is it?
Do you think there's such a thing as evil?
What? What are you talking about, pal?
2010's Let Me In, directed by Matt Reeves, who did The Batman, Cloverfield, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, War of the Planet of the Apes, and the David Schwimmer classic, The Pallbearer. He's also a producer on the HBO series The Penguin. The film stars Cody Smith McPhee, Chloe Grace Moretz, Richard Jenkins, Cara Buono, and Elias Costas. This film had a budget of 20 million and made a box office of 27 million, with 10 million in home market sales. This is one of my favorite films that I didn't hear about until it was released maybe 4 years later. And I actually saw the Swedish film Let the Right One In before I saw this one. It's also based off I guess, a book as well. I really enjoyed both versions. I thought they were both very, very done well. I think Chloe Grace Moretz does a great job. Richard Jenkins does a great job. Cody Smith McPhee does a great job in the film, as well as Elias Costas as he plays the detective. It's got a great story of a young vampire moving in that nobody knows is a vampire. She comes with supposedly her dad, and it kind of shows, Kelly Montesanti, Sam. She's Kelly Montesanti's in this film as the mom. But it shows a young vampire moving into an apartment complex with a bully kid, and he kind of becomes her friend, and you see that relationship build, and then it kind of, unravels the story behind there of what she does and who the people with her are, and it has its scenes of blood and what Richard Jenkins does. It's just one of those films that, again, very underrated, doesn't get talked about a lot, and it's one of those rare films where this is an English remake, and it's just as good as the original. So, what'd you think about this one?
I'm glad you picked it because this definitely was going to be one I was picking. I love this movie. It's very, very, very bleak in a good sense. Like, it makes me feel very. I watched it on a very, very dark day that was in my life, and I watched it, and it still was like, this movie still is very awesome in a way that is different than a lot of other movies. I don't know if this is a good thing, but I sometimes compare my job to this, where I feel like Richard Jenkins, where like when I started, they loved me, and then as I get older, they're just gonna throw me away and replace me, just like she does. That's her plot in this, is to find somebody else to take care of her. And for her, it doesn't. Her caretaker's going to die one day, and that's really the new kid and all of that. I just found it very deep in a way that was shot awesomely. Elias Koteas does a great job in this movie. Richard Jenkins, great job. Chloe Grace Moretz. Seeing this after seeing like Kick-Ass, again, really awesome all around. Just a really good movie.
Yeah, it's got a great story, like great story, and it is based off a book, which are some differences in the book and the actual film. You can read them in the notes when I post them online, but really, really good acting from Chloe Grace Moretz and Cody Smith McPhee. You kind of feel for him as a bully kid, kind of an outsider, and her as that weird, friend that he never says go. He asks her, "Do you go to school?" And she goes, "I wouldn't listen," which always cracks me up. Like, damn. And Richard Jenkins as her caretaker, which is, they explain the story behind there. It's shot. The cinematography is awesome. It gives you that scary atmosphere. Like, you don't know what's gonna happen. Is she gonna bite him? Is she gonna hurt him? You never see. You never really knowing what's really gonna happen between the relationship of them two. But you can also kind of feel for her too, because she's such a young vampire, as you learn. She's a 12-year-old girl, basically. You know how old she is, and she's still a kid. Like, and that's why she befriends these kids.
I think it's cool the way he shoots the movie. There's with that street light that's outside of the apartment, and just the way it looks. Like I said, it reminds me of like a different Hunger, but in a different way. Like, it's bleak, but it's like there's so much other stuff going on too. Richard Jenkins needing to steal like the blood and all of that. That's just really crazy to think about, when you think about it, because let's really be honest with that. All of these movies, yes, I don't believe that vampires are real, but with like a story like this one, the way it is filmed, it makes it almost feel like somewhere in some where there's a lot of apartments, something like this could happen, but it's not. But that's why the movie feels so cool because it feels so real.
Yeah, it's very, very realistic in terms
Yes.
of the way it goes. It's a great, great film. If you haven't seen it, definitely check this one out. I know I've been saying that about all the films, but like these films are well known. Like they're worth your time. Like even the scene here is one of the best scenes that like shot in terms of cinematography, in my opinion, with him standing there and her behind him all covered in blood.
Yeah.
It's nicely shot. Like it gives you a creep factor. And like I said, you're constantly thinking what's gonna happen with you know, Cody and Chloe. Like, is she gonna bite him? Is she not? But it's
Well,
definitely worth watching.
that's what's cool is that it's like he doesn't really know what he's getting involved in. She obviously does because she's the vampire, and and so does Richard Jenkins. But this kid is really like, well, he wants a friend, and she's very nice to him, and he doesn't have a lot of friends. So it's like, oh, this is a perfect match. It would be like if I was sitting on the couch and I wasn't doing a didn't know anybody, didn't have any podcasts, and all of a sudden you knocked on my door and was like, "Do you like movies?" I'd be like, "This is almost too surreal." But that's he as a kid, you believe in surreal stuff like that, and that's what I think is also a cool thing in the movie.
Yeah, definitely check this one out if you haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Let's get into our next one, my man.
Forget whatever you've seen in the movies. They don't turn into bats. Crosses don't work. Garlic? Want to try garlic? You stand there with garlic around your neck. One of these buggers will bend you fucking over and take a walk up your strata chocolata while he's sucking the blood out of your neck, all right? They don't sleep in coffins lined in taffeta. You want to kill one? You drive a wooden stake right through his fucking heart.
1998's Vampires, directed by the great John Carpenter, who also did Big Trouble in Little China, The Thing, Halloween 1 and 2, Dark Star, Escape from New York, and The Fog. The film stars James Woods, Daniel Baldwin, Cheryl Lee, and Thomas Ian Griffith. The movie had a box office of 20 million and a budget of 20 million, so it broke even. Tell me why you picked this one.
Well, for many different reasons. Number one, got very lucky and got to see this one in the theater with like my friends. I didn't walk out of the theater though as like, wow, this was a great movie. I actually kind of walked out a little disappointed, and it was one that I watched and watched and watched, and then I really like it a lot. It doesn't feel like some of Carpenter's other work that we love a lot, so I don't ever really hold it in as high as regards as like The Thing. But I thought of as far as vampires go, James Woods does a good job in this movie. Which I don't like to speak highly of James Woods sometimes because he doesn't say nice things. But in this movie, he does a really good job. And we used to make this joke that like his jeans in this movie were almost like painted on because there were no tighter jeans you could ever get on anybody than in this movie, which was a little disturbing. But besides that, the performances across the board are really, really awesome. Of course, the music is really, really good. What I thought was really, really cool was that Bruce Campbell was Carpenter's first choice to play Montoya. Think about that. Think about Bruce Campbell in this movie.
That'd have been so much better.
Maybe it would have been like Big Trouble in Little China.
Well, it's funny you say that because Carpenter, when trying to find the character of Jack Crow, who James Woods plays, actually really wanted Arlie Emery to play the character, but the studio declined because they thought he didn't have enough star power. So they had offered it to Clint Eastwood, Tommy Lee Jones, and Danny Glover, and they all declined. Dolph Lundgren was attached to play the part before Carpenter took over, and that was under Russell McKay. And William Dafoe was supposed to be the vampire, but that was before Carpenter took over under a previous director named Russell McKay. But he also was considering maybe getting Kurt Russell for the role of Jack Crow, which would have been hilarious that he plays two characters, Jack Burton and Jack Crow, which would have been funny. But like I said, I've said it several times about James Woods taking out his personal crap he spews in terms of his talent as an actor. He's very, very talented as an actor. Uh, very extraordinarily talented as an actor. He can bring that comedy and seriousness to any role. And this film, he does that. He's kind of the jagoff vampire hunter. The story of this film is ridiculous. You know, you have vampire hunters hunting vampires, but just like the whole concept when you have the priest in the beginning who gets killed by that. And I also love the fact that Terry Silver is the bad guy from The Karate Kid. He's a bad guy vampire in here. This was Carpenter's last film of the 20th century. And I really, it's one of those films again that doesn't get talked about a lot, but it's totally worth your time. It's definitely shot in a dark cinematography, and the way that you know
Feels like a
Daniel
western
Baldwin,
even a little
yeah,
bit. Like,
very, very extremely like a western. That's kind of I think drew me to it even more because I'm a huge fan of westerns. James Woods and Montoya's chemistry play really well in it as well. Uh, Definitely a good choice, Tony. I really, really like this film.
I like just I like this is what I was gonna bring up. I almost forgot. I love Daniel Baldwin in this movie. You think of all the Baldwin brothers. This is Daniel Baldwin. This is peak Daniel Baldwin. So yeah, check this one out.
Yeah, before he played Tony Soprano in Cleaver, he plays Montoya in this film. And actually, his brother Alec got offered a role and accepted it, but had to drop out. So they went to the down the Baldwin tree
On the Baldwin tree.
and got him. But definitely check this one out. It's definitely worth it. It's very gory as well, which is kind of a staple of vampire films.
Yeah.
But let's get into our next one, my man.
I am Dracula, and I welcome you to my house.
That's a very short line in the intro to this because I fought like hell to find a good opening line with, my man Christopher Lee for Dracula. This is a Horror of Dracula released in 1958. It's directed by Terrence Fisher, who is probably the most renowned director of the Hammer film series. He directed 29 films for Hammer. Some of them are Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell, Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, The Devil Rides Out, Night of the Big Heat, Frankenstein Created Woman, Island of Terror, Dracula, Prince of Darkness, The Earth Dies Screaming, The Horror of It All, The Two-Face of Dr. Jekyll, and The Brides of Dracula. He, I think, himself alone did over 10 plus movies with Christopher Lee, who stars in this film as Dracula, Peter Cushing, Michael Gough. If you don't know who Michael Gough is, he's Alfred from the Batman, early Tim Burton Batmans, and Melissa Scribbling. This film, to me, is one of my picks, of course, is one of my favorites because when we think of Dracula, we always think of Lugosi as the person who inspired Dracula's accent from Transylvania, his look, his menacing eyes. He kind of set the standard of what a vampire should play. Now, there is a Spanish version of Dracula released the same year that is extraordinarily good in 1932. It's actually just basically the same film, but in Spanish. And the actor who plays Dracula there does a great job as well. I'll come up with his name in a second. But Carlos Villares is very, very good as Count Dracula. He does a great job as well, but he's not really well known in American audiences because of back then the Spanish films weren't as heavily pushed as they are now in terms of foreign language films. But you should check that one out too. The Spanish version of Dracula is very good. But the reason I picked this film of Horror of Dracula is because Lugosi will always be my favorite Dracula, but Christopher Lee is right there. The reason that it took me so long to find a good clip of him talking is he only says 16 lines in this whole entire film. And that's 2 of them right there. I'm Dracula. Welcome to my house. There's a lot of scenes I could have used for him giving the Christopher Lee menacing stare like he's doing in this great picture tone, but he gives you the menacing like Dracula look like he's really gonna mess you up. It's terrifying, and I love the Hammer films because they are remakes of the old classic Universal horror films.
Yes.
The Universal movie monsters. They remade them and they upgrade them to color. There's also like a lot more like sex appeal in terms of here. And Terrence Fisher actually started that with this Dracula series because he said Dracula's an addict, kind of like a sex fiend. He uses his promiscuity as a way of drawing women, and that's the way he basically takes them over by biting them and whatnot. But you have Peter Cushing, who is played as Dr. Van Helsing in this film. He went on to play Dr. Frankenstein in a few other horror Hammer films, which he's the bad guy. And I just love the dynamic between him and Christopher Lee. They do a great job. What do you think about this one, Tom?
I mean, classic. Such a classic that it really becomes a staple, I think, of every Dracula movie. I mean, you start here at this one, or you could even go back to Nosferatu, but this is a really good indication of what we're looking at is what you think of as when you think of Dracula. You know what I mean? Like this picture here would be like as when I was like 9 or 10 and it was Dracula for Halloween. This is what I look like. I mean, this is the slick back hair, the teeth, menacing eyes, the cape. Just a really good performance, as you stated, by Christopher Lee. Just who's always doing everything he's in was really awesome, but did just a really good job in this.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Christopher Lee, like, he's been gone for a little bit. He's had such an iconic career. Like, he was Dracula, he was Count Dooku, which is kind of funny because Peter Cushing was in the original Star Wars before he passed. And then Christopher Lee was in Lord of the Rings. So he was in like big franchises.
James Bond, bad guy.
Yes, James Bond, like huge franchises. I also remember too in the Castlevania game when you beat the game, it gives like these fake actors for the roles for NES, and one of them was called Christopher B for Dracula, which is a homage to him. So that always cracked me up. But he's like I said, my second favorite, if that close tie with Bela Lugosi for Dracula.
Very awesome.
Yeah, so if you haven't seen this one, check it out. Check out the Hammer films. Like those are awesome horror films. If you don't like the originals, you think they're a little too campy, this is a more of an upgraded, more blood version of the original horror films, like the Universal Horror Monsters. So be sure to check those out. But Tone, let's close it out with your final pick, my man.
Please, God. Please.
No, God.
30 Days of Night, released in 2007, directed by David Slade, who also did Hard Candy, The Twilight Saga. There you go, Caitlin. Eclipse. He did music videos for AFI, The Girl's Not Grey video, and he also did Stone Temple Pilots, Sour Girl was the music video he shot. The film stars Josh Hartnett, Melissa George, Danny Huston, Ben Foster, and Mark Boone Jr., who was also in Vampires as well. The film had a budget of $30 million and made $75 million at the box office. Tone, tell us why you picked 30 Days of Night.
Danny Huston's awesome in this movie. His father, the great director John Huston, sister Angelica Huston. But his job as the bad guy in this movie, I think, just was really, really awesome. Josh Hartnett does a really good job in this movie too. I like the action in this movie. Out of all the vampire movies we really talked about, I think this one has a lot of action. I like the way it's shot too. I like the snow. I like the way it's just even the poster. I like the whole art for what they were doing for this movie. I thought it was pulled off really well. I mean, 2007, it was a while ago. I also like a lot, one of my favorite actors is Ben Foster. Like him in a lot of different stuff. He's really good in this movie. I like the idea that the vampires, they speak kind of an original language, which I guess was created with the help of linguistics professor from New Zealand University, which is kind of awesome when you think about it, to go that deep into coming up with a vampire's language. That's kind of the main reasons why I like this movie. What do you think about it?
I think it's a great concept. This became like a graphic novel series after the fact of the film. And, this is a great concept in terms of it's based in Alaska, and Alaska does have, 67 days of no sun, which it goes to like it's basically night all the time. And it has the opposite effect as well, whereas it's day, it's basically sunlight for a period of time as well. But in this film is, that kind of nighttime is coming, and we see Ben Foster come into town as a complete dick.
Mm.
He's thrown in jail, and he's like, "Oh, they're coming, which means the vampires are
God,
coming."
he's like so
Yeah,
creepy.
yeah, they're coming from the caves, and they just start killing people as they go into town and take over the town. And it's like, what are you gonna do? Like, they're gonna at least be there for a while. They're gonna catch you. What are you gonna do to survive? And it's basically a town banding together to fight the vampires. Uh, Houston is awesome in this film. It made me appreciate him more after seeing him in The Crow, which gave him shit to work with.
Yeah.
The remake of The Crow, this film gave him a lot more. His mannerisms in this film are awesome. He doesn't say many words. He speaks in the vampire language, as you said, but his mannerisms and his, you know, facial expressions really, really show it's creepy like that. The scene I played, a woman's calling out for God, and he just looks up in the sky and says, "No God," in his devilly looking way. It's awesome. Very gory as well, which I'm a big fan of that.
Again, just as you said, just a really, really awesome performance. Um, was not around a long time. It was actually only around for a couple seasons on Stars TV. It was this show called Magic City. It had Jeffrey Dean Morgan was the star of it. Danny Houston was like the mob boss or whatever. He did a great job on that too. By looking it up, it looks like he's going to be in his new Naked Gun remake. I'm curious to see how that's going to go. But does a good job in this movie. And Josh Hartnett, you know what I mean? He's back in this. I haven't seen it yet, the M. Night Shyamalan movie. But hearing he did a good job in it, his performance.
Yeah, he's also in Oppenheimer.
Yeah, he sure is. He sure is. And he's also really good in The Faculty. Another really good
extremely,
movie.
extremely. Yeah.
But again, I like it again because it gives, as you stated, I like the ending of the movie when the sun comes up, the way it kind of ends. I just like, again, different than all the other vampire movies we talked about.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, David Slade, of course, did more, I guess, music videos for artists, and he wasn't originally tied to direct this film. It was actually Sam Raimi was actually in position to do it, and Sam Raimi actually decided, hey, you know what? When the script was in the earliest, stages, he's like, I'll produce this film, and they let David Slade do it, and you could see a lot of Raimi little isms in here with Evil Dead, like the mannerisms and the way the vampires kill people. As you can see, it's a Sam Raimi influence there. But I love the fact that he kind of stepped aside and let somebody else take a vision, and he did it. And David Slade did a great job in terms, like this. As I said, the cinematography is awesome. It's creepy. You do feel some type of panic. Like, are they going to catch them? What are they going to do? And just put yourself in that situation. Like, what's going to happen? This would be an awesome video game, to be honest with you. If they ever made a video game out of this, I would play the hell out of it. It'll be really fun to play.
I'm really curious because just yesterday they released a remake of Salem's Lot on Max. I'm going to check it out and see if it's any good. But the original was awesome. So
yeah, they've made a couple of them. I think they had one on TNT.
They did a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't that bad. I like the original, but the remakes haven't been. Salem's Lot's been actually treated a lot better than most remakes.
I like Bill Pullman's son Lewis. He stars in this new one, and he was in like Top Gun and stuff. It should be pretty good.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out. I actually was watching that today when I watched that movie I told you about that I'll probably talk about next week. But yeah, it's a great. The Salem's Lot, the original 2-part series, was a TV show, TV series, and it was good. I remember watching that as a kid. I still have the VHS tapes upstairs, which is kind of funny. But yeah, the remake, it's interesting. I might check that one out tonight.
How do you feel about Bram Stoker's Dracula? Do you like that one?
I like Bram Stoker's Dracula. I do think that Gary Oldman looked kind of weird as Count Dracula.
Oh yeah,
as the old Count Dracula.
Gotcha.
It wasn't really so much his pale skin; it was his the hair they gave him. And I'm like, it was strange. There's also a funny thing where he gets pissed off because Keanu Reeves is something happened with Keanu Reeves. He couldn't make the set at a certain point, and like Gary Oldman's like, "Well, where's Keanu?" And they're like, "Oh, he's still in his trailer." And he gets mad and he walks off. But and he's in that costume, and then when he walks off, it just looks hilarious to me. The film itself is a good film. Anthony Hopkins has a great cast in it. Winona Ryder, but I mean, I like the Lugosi version.
Oh yeah. Well, one last one. What about Interview with the Vampire?
Loved it.
Yeah, I love everything about it except Guns N' Roses' version of Symphony for the Devil that's in the credits at the end. It's a real bad remake.
Well, it's Guns N' Roses. I thought that was Mick Jagger that plays it when he plays the radio
song
comes on.
singing it. No, it's like at the end of the movie when the Guns N' Roses for the soundtrack did a cover of Symphony for the Devil. It was actually the downfall of when they really started like.
Oh, really? Because I remember at the end of the film when Tom Cruise bites Christian Slater. I thought that was didn't they use the Stones version for the movie?
No, it's them.
Oh,
it's them in the credits.
I never really noticed. I always thought that was like one of the best endings in terms of like paying a film.
It was
pairing it with a soundtrack track.
Oh, yeah.
For that was having Simply for the Devil because he just bites himself and said.
Well, it was cool. The song was cool, but if you go right now tonight and put your headphones on and listen to like the Stones version and then do Guns N' Roses, you might. But like as a kid when it came on, I'm talking about like in retrospect, now you're like Guns N' Roses, but I liked that movie a lot. I liked the way it ended too. My favorite was the way actually Kristen Dunst met her demise, the way she turned to like the ash and then the way the ash like blew, but good movie.
Yeah, and apparently there was a lot of they were lovers, Brad Pitt and Tom Cruise character in the book.
Oh yes, that is true.
Which I could kind of see in the film. It's just one of those films that's really, really good. Yeah, Tom Cruise is such a dick in that film too, which is funny.
Yeah, big dick.
Yeah, definitely check that one out too if you haven't seen it. 40 Days and 40 Nights was better. Sam, you want to know what's funny? I went to a St. Rita, which is a Catholic high school. We watched 40 Days and 40 Nights in our theology class for Lent.
Wow.
My senior year, my teacher showed it to us. As a we had to do a test on this film, which is everybody was watching it. It was just like one of those films where we had to do a test on. And 40 Days and 40 Nights is one of the films we watched, which is ridiculous. But yeah, that was a pretty decent film. But that is our 10 vampire films. Let us know if we left any of your favorites off the list. There are so many out there that I would love more recommendations. And just a heads up, if there's a horror film that you have not seen a lot of people talk about and you really want to get more publicity, reach out to me in the DMs or Tony, and I can maybe think about doing something on it for 31 Days of Horror in the future. Tone, you got anything else to say about these vampire films, my man?
No, I mean a great list that we comprised. Really awesome. Covered lots and lots of ground. We brought up everything from Vampire's Kiss to the only thing I wanted to get to was, have you ever seen What Lies in the Shadows?
That's Johnny Depp movie?
No, it's the one with the vampire one with the they did the television show too on FX. They're like the three vampires, Jeremy Clement, Taki Watu. He's like, it's his thing.
Yeah, but didn't Johnny Depp do a remake of that film? What We Do in the Shadows?
I'm talking about a vampire. I think we're talking about two separate things here. What's his name? What I'm talking about is a comedy series.
Yeah, it's in Chicago, right? It's based in Chicago.
No, it's like three vampires and they live in a house together, and it's kind of like The Office. No.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. It's it's with what's his name?
What's the guy who does the Thor movie?
Waititi, but it's also with the English guy. Right?
Yes, Jermaine Clement. My point is in the movie, in the original movie, it's funny because like Nosferatu's living in the basement, but like they go down there and they're like knock on his like cave door or whatever, and he like opens it up real slowly. Like it's a real cheesy performance on vampirism, but that's why I wanted to bring it up too. That was the only
Okay,
point.
I've seen clips of this on.
Honestly, I think you would love it. Especially actually check out that FX show. It's only 30 minutes.
Mhm.
You will laugh really, really hard. I know you will laugh really, really hard. I'm curious to hear what you would think.
Yeah,
Dark
I'll def-
Shadows is what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. That's what I got.
And I
Right.
forgot he was in that vampire movie. So yes, that was yeah.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, what? I'm like, wait, what?
Dark Shadows. You almost got me almost like Johnny Depp was in what you, and I was like, what? My mind was melting, but that makes sense. Yes, Dark Shadows.
Yeah, as I was like confused. I'm like, wait, is Johnny Depp? No. Matt Berry actually is
Great.
hilarious, and I forget the series he's on, but he's a voice actor. And but there's a Cliff Romano. Do you hear me? It's just like a series that he does. It's Toast of Tinseltown is a
Oh yeah.
series.
Yes.
And there's a character in there that it's just totally off the subject. I'm sorry, it's filmed. There's a guy named Clem Fandango who sits in on his voiceover sessions and like say the voiceover producer will be like, "Hey, Steven, we need you to do this really loud and really passionate." And he'll be like, "Okay." And then you'll see Clem Fandango will go, "Steven, can you hear me?" And he's like, "Yes, I can hear you." He goes, "Steven, this is Clem Fandango." He's like, "I know who you are, Clem Fandango." And he's like, "We need you to do this really loud and very passionate." He's like, "That's what he just said." That's like an ongoing joke in the series. It's just one thing that cracks me up. Like, it's a really fun, show. I think Matt Berry does. Is he
Yeah.
in that? He's in that show too, right? The
Yeah,
vampire one.
he's got another cartoon on Fox right now called Crapopolis. It's actually pretty funny. It's like set back in like Roman times.
Mhm.
Really ridiculous, but good stuff. Good stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. So that's our vampire film. So sorry to go off on a tangent there, but that's how sometimes our film conversation goes. Dark Shadows was a Depp movie. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Tony. I was like looking it up too. I'm like, wait, what? But Tone, since we are in the Halloween season of October, let everybody know what's coming soon, my man.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Coming soon.
Próximamente.
Coming soon.
Coming soon.
All right, next week we are again back to the old format, and this week we had our favorite 5 and 5 vampire movies. Next week we're going to go 5 and 5 our favorite slasher movies. Who knows where this can lead? I guess it can lead anywhere from Michael Myers to, well, The Bride of Chucky. I guess we will have to wait and see where that takes us. And very excitingly, gonna do some really deep diving on this one.
I have some of my I'm thinking about right now that I watched as a kid that nobody ever talks about.
Oh, that's awesome. I got one actually just now that you mentioned that it was one of the last DVDs that I bought for $12 because it's very hard to find one. Be good.
Oh, yeah. So I'm gonna go with some deep cuts on this one. It'll be more deeper than the vampire films that we went into. I know Tony's got slasher films has a more gigantic collection of films. If you're into those, you definitely check us out next week. I'm really looking forward to it. Just doing some housekeeping before we go into the Sugar Baggies soundtrack of the week. Tony has been doing an excellent job releasing 31 blogs in 31 days in October for our website, statisticpenguins.com, statisticpenguinstudios.com. He's been doing horror tracks, and they're awesome read. He releases them every morning around 8, so be sure to check out the blogs that he's been doing. Tone, tell us a little bit about the blogs you've been doing, my man.
Well, it's funny that you should mention that because today's blog is actually a continuation where why don't you hit my soundtrack thing of the week right there, and we're going to get right to it.
Okay, cool, my man.
The Sugar Baggies soundtrack pick of the week.
Today on the soundtrack pick number 4 was the track Killer Clowns from Outer Space. by the Dickies, who honestly on a recent Hook Up on Music, they played Riot Fest. But this music as a whole in this movie is really, 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 really awesome. Back to what Yump was saying, the clips that I'm doing for the blogs, it gives you a little fun, a little in the background, a real quick little read. For tonight's soundtrack, though, the music in the movie, on top of that, one song is great. I don't know why that song always is playing in my head, but it is. It's a quick song. The movie itself, I'm hoping sometime we're going to fit it in here in October. But that song is just really, 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 really good. And the soundtrack composed by John Massari. It's got everything from like clown noises and this and that. And by doing research for this, really was able to get a lot of cool sounds on synthesizers and stuff that emulated awesome carnival noises and stuff like that. But wanted to bring this one to the forefront because it was a connection to the article that you were talking about. So check out Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the soundtrack. Real cool vinyls too that are out there, with cool different kind of like cotton candy colors and cool different, there's like so many of them, but definitely awesome.
Definitely awesome soundtrack. Definitely awesome movie. The Chiodo brothers. They're mostly known for special effects, but they directed that film. And two characters that always stuck out to me and my brother for that film is Terenzi brothers, who run the ice cream truck.
The music from their ice cream truck is memorable.
Great. It's a film that's corny, but it's so good. So bad it's good. Like I love the fact they turned them into cotton candy to drink their blood, which always cracks me up. Awesome pick, Tone. Killer Clowns is a great, corny, campy horror film. If you like horror films, I am doing a series called 31 Days of Horror, where I release a horror film mini review every day for the month of October. This is our 3rd year running. You can check out old episodes over on our YouTube channel. If you're watching right now, check out an episode today. I just released Hellraiser today. If you haven't seen the 1987 film, I did Leprechaun, as well as The Possession was another film I did with Body Bags, a John Carpenter film that's talked about. Be sure to check those out. I'll be releasing a new one tomorrow and all through this month. So you've got the music side, read them up on Tony's blogs, and then if you like the video side, check them out on the YouTubes or on the website as well.
And two things really quick. On Sunday night, all last weekend I worked really hard and I was really excited. I sat down Sunday night and I turned on my big screen TV, and after 2 years, for some unknown reason, the picture went out. So tomorrow I'm getting a brand new big screen TV, and the first thing I'm going to queue up again is your awesome videos, Jump. And I'm excited. Me and Katie are going to sit and watch them all in a row again, because we did all the ones last year, and Katie loves them. I love them. And if you don't love them, this is what you can expect. Great stuff, yeah. Really great stuff, man.
Thanks, man. You know what's funny? Brian was saying on his show, like, how people don't like Dave Navarro.
Mm-hmm.
I like Dave Navarro. I know Flea and him got into it, and I know him and Anthony Kiedis got into it. But he's an excellent musician. He's a weirdo.
You'll love this, Jump. I'll always remember when we were moving to Indiana when I was in 8th grade, and my dad in the minivan flying down the roads here, and Warped had just came on Q101, and he had it turned up so loud. And honestly, I loved that song when it came out. So I will never talk ill of Dave. And honestly, from what I'm reading now, there was something else that was dropped this week. It was actually the tour guitar player that really just said Perry is or the bass player from Porno for Pyros came out and was like, Perry just doesn't show up for things. He's an ego. But that's, that's here or there. We don't want to come for you if you don't see Yumper's videos, because they're amazing. They're so cool. And honestly, like I told you last year, those little intros that you do with all the little clips together, I don't know how you do it, my man, but it's like the Jimi Hendrix of putting clips together. So very cool, dude.
Thanks, my friend. It's a lot of hard work, but I enjoy doing them. To go back to Warp, One Hot Minute was my first Chili Peppers album I ever owned.
Ooh.
That was actually the first album that made me fall in love with Chili Peppers, which is kind of crazy because Frusciante, who's my favorite Pepper, wasn't on that. Warped was like, and then I went back and listened to their older stuff, which I love. I think I own all their albums on vinyl, including Stadium Arcadium, thanks to Mailman Jack, who that was a hard one for me to find. Mailman Jack told me Amazon was selling it for a discounted price, which I bought it. But yeah, One Hot Minute is one of my favorite albums. My dog's barking now. But definitely love that album. But Tone, my man, that is our show. We'll be back next week with some slasher films. Again, be sure to check out the 31 Days of Horror videos along with the 31 Days of Horror track reviews. Getting Drafty in here just had a pod last week with Sean Janikowski and our man Johnny Southside Bum from the Chicago Sports Bums. They actually drafted TV themes, which was a really funny episode. They drafted songs that were based off TV shows. I know Brian has something cooking coming up this week as well.
He's got Tuesday night. He's got me and Mr. Aloha, Mr. Hand. I guess we will be doing disaster movies, which unfortunately I will not get too much in my head because immediately I started thinking of movies that sucked, like disaster.
Volcano?
Yeah, well, honestly, I put that one on actually on Friday this past week just to laugh because it's ridiculous. But tune into that.
Yeah, be sure to tune into that. Also, shout out to Brewhand Luke. Today we had a triple header where Brewhand Luke actually did the Grateful Ducks tailgate where he went into college football to prepare for tomorrow, announcing some of his bets and going through some of the NCAA rankings. We need more Illini talk, Luke, but be sure to check that out. It was actually before us. Wow. And also the Hook Up on Music is on Friday. So we do back-to-back shows every week with the Hook Up on Music. And then we have the At the Show podcast. So you're getting a double dose of Tony on Friday. So if you're not doing anything, grab a beer, grab a Coke if you don't drink, sit down and chill out with us every Friday. And pretty much thanks everybody for watching, listening, commenting with us, shooting the crap in the comments. And we'll be seeing you again next week. Take care. Easy, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the At the Show podcast, a Sadistic Penguin Studios production.
Game over, man. It's game over. What the fuck are we gonna do now? What are we gonna do?
Maybe we could build a fire, sing a couple of songs, huh? Why don't we try that?